Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of Erinn's Book Club. I had plans of going outside and making this book review really nice because it's beautiful outside, but it's been a long day at work and a longer day at the barn and I'm exhausted, so at this point you're lucky that I'm here, let alone nice background and stuff. So I'm going to make this review short and quick, so simply because I'm exhausted and I want to get on to the next book and carry on, so to speak. But the review that I would like to do today is called The Island Stallion's Fury by Walter Farley. It is got beautiful cover art. It's a Black Stallion series type of book. I really enjoyed it in the fact that it was different from most of the other Black Stallion things, and the concept was also different from all of the Black Stallion things. Like, it wasn't all about speed. Like, speed was there, but it wasn't all about speed. Let me read the back of it to you so you know what we're dealing with. Before I go any further, there will be spoilers in this review, so I do want to make sure that you're aware of that, and if you haven't read this book, to read it and then come back to me, and then I'd be more than happy to discuss this book with you. Okay, so Steve and his horse Flame are living peacefully on remote Azell Island when a greedy, cruel stranger discovers their quiet paradise. Suddenly, their dream world becomes a nightmare. Steve is taken captive, and only Flame can save him. But how can a horse outsmart a cunning and desperate man whose intentions are deadly? One of the most dramatic stories in the famous Black Stallion series, this tale is not about racing or surviving in the wild, but about something more fundamental, man against beast. And before I go into the notes that I wrote about this book, I want to make it clear that it was interesting that in this Man Against Beast, the hero, which is the horse, almost didn't make it, almost didn't win. And it wasn't an easy win, which you would expect the hero of a child's storybook to be, an easy win. And I've always said this about this series. I am super impressed with how realistic the series is. Sorry, that's Willow. With all of the writing, even with the concept of once they did win, and there was a death of the person who attacked them, who was a family member, once they did win, it wasn't like everything's back to normal, everything's just the way it has been, everything's great. He wrote that, Steve was changed forever, and even the Stallion was changed forever, to the point that he wouldn't go to the place where the fight was, where the final fight was. The Stallion would avoid that. And it was interesting, too, that the main character, Steve, instead of conquering that, let's say, instead of that, accepted that, understood that, and just comforted the Stallion and expected nothing of him. Just expected him to be confident in his fear, that kind of thing. And that was an interesting outlook as well. Because sometimes in life, when a tragedy happens, you can't fix it. You can't make it all go away. You always keep a little part of that with you. And introducing that to a child's book where then the child can learn that's the way life is, I think is very helpful. So I have a few notes here that I made. The evil Tom, the Tom that attacked the island, I found very unsettling as a child's villain. The mental capacity or the mental breakdown is very intimidating, especially for the age group that's going to be reading this book. The attempt of the author to foster sympathy for the enemy, Tom, because of his mental breakdown, fell flat to me. Trying to make it that Tom is sick, and that's the reason he attacked, that he mentally had a break, and therefore we should maybe sympathize with him instead of hate him, fell completely flat with me. But again, the Steve character is a better person than I would ever be, because I don't find any kind of forgiveness in that. So that was interesting. I also wanted to bring up that when they found Tom in the caves and they knew what kind of man he was at that point, they didn't know how far he had gone, but they knew what kind of cruelty he was capable of. Instead of saving that man, I probably would have let him die. If he was, down and barely breathing, I probably would have let him die. So yeah, I'm probably a less of a character, or less of a proper human being than Steve and Phil, or Pitch, because there's no way I would have tried to save him. The introduction of the foal in this book, the innocence of the foal, the trying to fight and save the foal, the broken leg on the foal and trying to fix that was a much needed comic relief throughout of it too. It brought down the seriousness of the book. You were able to have a bit of a chuckle as he tried to raise the foal. I noticed though in this book there wasn't much growth in the Steve and Pitch characters. They both kind of seemed the same as they were when they started the book as when they finished the book, which I think was because the book was basically focused on Flame and the foal and the band of horses, because there was lots of insight to Flame and his growth. So all in all, a really good book. I think it's important for the children to read, but I think parents should be aware that there is a lot of violence and there is a lot of, I don't know if you call it trigger warning, but there's abuse and violence. But I think it's important for people to read because I think it's important for children of that young age. Stop chewing my books. Cat's eating my books. Children of the young age to learn that, you know, there aren't always good people in the earth, and not always will the heroes win. So, thanks for everybody for listening to me about having another book read, and I will let you know when I've got another one to report on. Have a great day, everybody. Sorry, I'm very tired.